So students are all different, right? That seems like a no duh kind of statement, but I think it's something that it is really important for all of us to keep in mind. And because students are all different, it is our responsibility as educators to figure out how to meet their needs. And we're going to do that in a number of different ways. So our in-class strategies are first and foremost to provide multiple ways for students to access information. You know, maybe that is there's some stuff to read, and there's also an equivalent access point for that information through a video. Or maybe there's the book and there's the book on tape, right? We can be creative and strategic about how we help students get what they need in terms of course content. So that's the input side. There's also like what we call a student output side, which is there is more than one way for a student to explain what they know about a subject. Maybe you write a paper. Maybe you do an oral presentation. Maybe you do it visually. Some of the best student work I have ever seen has been graphic depictions of course content. It'll look a little different in any given class, but this is not a one-size-fits-all model. There are a lot of adaptive technologies, and more are just becoming standardly embedded into software. So text-to-speech, we can set you up so that whatever document we give you can be read out loud to you by the slightly weird computer voice. Or speech to text. Maybe you want to dictate your paper and have it magically appear on the screen in front of you. You'll need to go back and clean it up and make sure that the computer didn't confuse what you were saying. But that is often a great way for people to get their thoughts out on paper, start to organize them, etc. And between you, me, and these four walls, I have a colleague who used to do all of her student comments at grading time that way. She would just like set up her computer and start to talk about each student. And it was a great way for her to be able to really feel connected to her students and get her comments written. Opportunities for revision. Life is not one and done, usually speaking. And some of the best learning that students have will be when they take something and go back in and try again. And all of our classes are designed so that if you need to, you can go back and try again. Untimed testing. So accessing what you know is not the same thing as making you do it really quickly. And so if you need longer to explain something to me, then you can have longer. Like, we might need to figure out how to make that work, right? It may mean you do some of, task X at one time a day, and then you come back during office hours or supervised study and do some more later. But I don't really care how fast you tell me about biology. I care that you tell me about biology and like feel comfortable that everything you are telling me is what you need to do. That's the important part. If you were in the individualized math session, you heard a little bit about how the pacing of that course. Math is not a race. It is not a race to be able to say that you are graduating from high school having taken like every possible calculus class ever in the planet. It is about making sure you understand math and can use math to solve problems. And so maybe some parts of math you can like easy peasy lemon squeezy buzz on through. Please do that. Maybe other parts of math are trickier for you and you need more time. Take the time you need, right? As long as you hit the benchmarks that you need to by graduation, you're good, right? And we will work with you to appropriately pace your math instruction. There is a teacher saying that you teach the students who walk in your door. No matter who you think they might be or should be or anything else, the students you have are the students you have. And that is what we will do. We will take every student who walks into our door on the first day of school and help you move to the next place and the place after that and the place after that. It is about growth and learning. And school shouldn't be a race or a competition. And then last but not least, a really important part of developing as a student is taking stock of what you do well, what you need help on, and what your path forward will be as a student and as a learner. And that reflection is a really important and integral part of what your Hatch experience will be like. It could be something as simple as, look at the mistakes you made on that quiz. Decide, like, was that a mistake that you really didn't know the information, or was that a mistake that, like, you wrote down the wrong word and it changed the meaning of what you were talking about? Or was that a mistake, like, you just didn't prepare well? Or something else, right? Like, be honest with yourself about what the error was. And then let's work together to design how the next go round, you'll do something differently to, you know, improve on your skills, right? That's really what learning is about. Because ultimately you're going to go out in the world without me or your other teachers. And we want you to be able to do this independently and to really become an empowered, independent learner. So that's what we're going to do in class. There are things that happen outside of class as well. So we have this supervised study that is the last block of every day. And as I said in an earlier session, you can choose to do supervised study like a couple of days a week, or in alternation with PE or fine arts, or whatever you need. We will figure out a way to make supervised study work for you. Maybe, you know, your first trimester as a 9th grader, you're in supervised study every day just to get the hang of what high school is like, and then move to a couple of days by the end of the year, whatever. We also, separate from that, have office hours, and that is, you know, colleges often have this thing called office hours. It's a time when you can go meet one-on-one or in small group with your teacher or professor. And there's actually, just, you know, for future reference, research that shows that students in college who go to office hours for help, even if it's only a couple of times over the course of the semester, their grades can be up to a full letter grade higher just from going to office hours, right? It gives you targeted, useful help on something that you need in order to move forward in your work. So, like, if you take nothing else from this entire morning, like, if you decide to go to college, use your office hours. It is a great strategy. So homework. Lots of people want to know about homework. I will give you like the Jessica Hansen spiel on homework, which is homework is only beneficial if you know why you are doing it. So these are the reasons your teachers usually give you homework. And you should know why you're doing what you're doing. That is my just be all end all statement. Because if you don't know why you're doing it, you're probably wasting your time to some extent. So, and then last but not least, outside of class, like never suffer in silence, right? talk with your teachers, talk with your advisor, talk with your parents, and strategize a way that you can all talk with your teachers. Learning is a process, and you need to just be an active participant in that process. But it should also not be psychically painful to do so. Okay, last but not least, and then I will address what's coming up in the chat. As we work with families, some of you may have outside support already in place for your students, and we will definitely work with you and whoever those outside professionals are, both in terms of coordination, for instance, with tutors, or work between diagnosticians and teachers, etc. We all want to support student self-advocacy. That goes back to that don't suffer in silence situation. So how we can all work to get students to have the confidence and self-confidence to talk one-on-one with their teachers if necessary. And then lastly, we just want to make sure that everyone is keeping the lines of communication open so that we're all on the same page about what's happening with your individual kiddos. So in terms of this question about individualized learning that has shown up in the chat, we anticipate that we are not a fully one-on-one individual learning school, right? Like there is group-based instruction at Hatch. That said, our experience of working in much larger schools, both Sarah and I have, leads us to believe that with the adults that we have planned to come on board and just the way we have structured our day, that we can meet the needs of like this diverse group of students that we are expecting to come in part because we're being really intentional about how we structure things like assignments so that it like a single assignment can meet a breadth of student needs in terms of inputs, outputs, support time on campus during supervised study, etc. Family buy-in is one of those pieces that is a little harder to anticipate. Our hope and our goal is that if you are here having this conversation about sending your student to a brand new school, that there is some potential buy-in already, and that if you have specific questions about our ability to meet the needs of your specific student, we welcome those conversations. If as we move through the process, if your student has testing that they've had done for like a whole host of reasons, maybe they've been tested into gifted and talented programs, or maybe they've had evaluations for other kinds of learning situations. We welcome a conversation about that as well, and we can be pretty candid with you about if we think we can meet your students' needs, particularly in these early years. Because you're right, we will not have a dedicated learning support person at the beginning. What we have are teachers who have a number of years of experience working with students with really diverse learning profiles. And so have the experience of modifying assignments if necessary, differentiating assignments as needed. And also, okay, I'm just checking the time. Being able to, put into place the academic equivalents of curb cuts, right? So there's this theory called this approach called universal design for learning. And that is a lot of the things that we think of as special accommodations for students are actually just good teaching. So when the Americans with Disabilities Act first came online and cities had to put in curb cuts, they thought, oh, we're putting in curb cuts for people who are in wheelchairs. What we found was that curb cuts help a lot of other people besides people who are in wheelchairs. They help you know, people with baby strollers, and they help people who are moving, you know, pianos and all kinds of other situations. The same is true in teaching and learning. Some of the things that traditionally people have thought of as accommodations for students who need help are just helpful and good for everyone.